30.
That's good serving from Jonsson, who's said by the media guide to be 6'2", 1m87, although frankly he looks a little smaller than that to me. Well, there are not many indoor courts in the world where you could hoist a lob as high as that and not hit the roof, but still no problems for Sampras. Break point for the third time. And the double fault concedes the break. The double break, Sampras 5-1 in front. And through, although we're still early days, and in the number one seed already starting to coast.
Yes, in a way I think it suits him to be playing suddenly an indoor match against Jonsson. Jonsson likes a bit more time, particularly with his forehand. He's got a very pronounced western grip, almost a la Barasategi, and therefore likes just a little bit more time. Sampras not giving him time on the forehand side, which is his weapon. Well, two successive smashes to the forehand side. Jonsson might have to start covering that.
Oh, that's impressive stuff.
30.
Well, Sampras really flowing. Hasn't lost a set in the tournament thus far. He really hasn't lost that many games, and the confidence build-up is there really for all to see. That's the sweetest of his shots, I believe.
And the ace takes the defending champion to 3 set points. Just lost 9 games in 2 matches plus set.
Game set.
Virtually unstoppable, Sampras. And through as he wraps up that opening set in 24 minutes, what perhaps makes Pete's start to this match even more impressive is he must be desperately worried because his coach Tim Gullickson has been taken off to hospital this morning, once again feeling unwell. We know Tim's had two minor strokes, small strokes, one in Stockholm last October, one in Munich last December. I mean, he must be desperately worrying for Pete to hear that news.
Yes, I think it is. I think he's a compassionate sort. But watching him play in Munich, where the same thing had happened to Tim Gullickson, it seemed to me that for a while his mind may have been on it, but I think he was able to shuffle off that thought process and think more about his tennis. And of course, he's played on his own before. He's a big boy now, as he himself, I'm sure, will admit. And whilst it is worrying and takes a bit out of you to begin with, I think once you get into a match, the thoughts of that hopefully are forgotten.
Last thoughts certainly are with Tim, and we hope that it's nothing too serious today and that he'll swiftly be back with us.
Second set.
Such a nice guy, Tim Gullickson, the right-hander of the two twins. Of course, Tom, now America's Davis Cup captain.
Yes, I had a Christmas card from him, and he was saying that he's on an aspirin a day.
Second set, Jonsson serving.
15 love.
I often feel that people underestimate Sampras's ground strokes. I mean, they think of him as a serve and volleyer, but he is now a complete all-rounder.
And there's no doubt about that. Can't win the Italian championships without having a few clay court baseline strokes. Jonsson's got an efficient serve, hits it actually pretty hard, doesn't put a lot of muscle into it, and so conserves energy in the process.
The mood Sampras is in, it's as if he wants to get down the hospital and see how Tim is quickly as possible. 2 break points. And there is the break, and the #1 seed in total control. A set and a break to the good. Miserable outside. He is underway now in the outside courts, but delayed for 2.5 hours. And I tell you, it's a bit like autumn in Blackpool instead of summer in Melbourne. Pretty breezy, pretty chilly outside.
15.
Very difficult to pick the Sampras serve. And of course it's so pacey that if you don't anticipate.
Second one's not too bad either, 167 Ks. Oh, it must be so frustrating. Guy chucks the ball up in the air, swings his racket, and that's another point. Now, can he make it 4 in a row and a bonus mark? was Becker the other week in the Hopman Cup, so 5 successive aces. Becker was above 40 down on his serve, swings his arm over 5 times, wins the game.
Still one of the departments of the Sampras game that hasn't been honed to perfection. Nor has the backhand slice.
Well, it's good resistance from Jonsson. Get it back from 40 love to deuce.
Yes, clever play really, because he was out of position as Sampras worked him with his forehand wide, just controlling the head of the racket so well and making sure that he kept the ball in play and kept Sampras at stretch. Had he just gone down the middle of the court, he'd have been in real trouble.
Advantage, Sampras.
It was not always easy for the double-hander to play secure one-handed shots. There are those that can, but there's many a double-hander that can't. Broken string, not surprising.
He won't get a first serve. If it happens the other way around, he would have if a receiver's string goes when he plays away a fault serve. And there's consequently a delay. The server gets a first serve, but obviously not if it goes on his first serve. So advantage to Sampras and a second serve.
Game Sampras. Sampras leads. 2 games to none.
I was thinking the last indoor event, of course, that Sampras played was the Grand Slam Cup.
And he lost there to the final to Magnus Larsson. Another Swede, of course, and Larsson awaits him because Larsson has had a walkover today.
Well, Jonsson really taking this ball pretty early here. Hits it pretty flat, as I was saying. It's chiefly because of the grip that he has waiting for his big forehand.
Just to explain that walkover of Magnus Larsson, he was due to play yet another Swede, Thomas Enquist, but Thomas is unwell today. Had a bit of a fever, unable to play, had to withdraw.
15 all.
So Magnus Larsson awaits the winner of this match. Oh dear.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I thought the serve was long too. Sampras, just for a fraction, wasn't going to play it, heard no call and acted. It really did look long.
And then the bad misjudgment by Jonsson.
30 all.
Sampras with not a bad tan. Jonsson acquired much of his dark brown in Qatar. So I'm doing quite a bit of practicing with his shirt off.
Well, this is a wonderful display of all-court tennis from Sampras. Jonsson had plenty of time to practice in the first couple of weeks of the year because he lost in the first round of both Qatar and then Jakarta. And I don't think Mr. Jonsson's involvement in this tournament is going to extend much beyond the next hour and a half.
Yeah, seeing him throwing his racket there, in fact, in his first round match in Doha, he looked as if he had the better of wildcard Yunus Al-Anoui of Morocco. Should have beaten him, but lost a bit of patience, actually. Got quite needled on the court. And part of that, of course, was due to the fact that Al-Anoui had a lot of Arabian support in Qatar. And in the end, that, I think, was the difference. And he has got a little bit of a short fuse on the court. And it can be doubly irritating when Sampras is serving this well, and the odd line call that you think should go in your favor goes in favor of the big server. As if he's not serving well enough, there's no need for the linesman to help, as you're sort of feeling. Not, of course, that the linesmen are helping.
Yes, Lars Jonsson beat Yunus Al-Anoui here last year on his way to the last 16. Also beat Karol Novacek, who will be seeing in action against Michael Stich later today. What do I do with this racket, sir? Pete Sampras has given it to me. I don't know what to do. Because normally Tim Gullickson would be rushing around making sure he got strung at the required tension. That's what Pete wants. He rushed off to the stringer, but just out the back, actually. And you go out the entrance to the court, turn left, and then they are. Three love, Sampras, second set.
15 love.
And that's 5 aces now in this set from Sampras, and this is only his second service game.
Most of the top players use gut.
Second.
Yes, when he's hurried on both wings, actually, he's in trouble. Jonsson likes a lot more time to play his tennis. And Sampras is keeping such a good length.
Game Sampras.
Haven't seen him serve this well for quite some time, really.
4 games.
7 aces he served in his first round match against Potsi. But there's really a fluency about him here that is rather ominous for other players.
I suppose the fact that they're playing indoors helps. No wind, obviously no sun to worry about.
Well, the difference there that Sampras's approach shot just a little shorter.
15 all.
Yes, didn't quite move his legs. I suppose Jonsson really more like Yared, sort of a slightly prickly Swede, unlike most of the other icebergs.
Oh, dear me. What do you do when your first serve comes back like that, with interest? I suppose all you can do is stand and admire it.
Well, if he had a peek to his cap, he could at least touch it.
But the only way he's going to win a point at the moment. Second service aces. Well done, Jonsson. When Sampras is playing this well, to win a game is quite an achievement. 4-1, the top seed leads in the second set. It's day 5 of the Australian Open, which means we're through to the third round now, playing for a place in the last 16. And I think when you get down to the last 16, you always think you're beginning to reach the sharp end of the tournament.
And with the world's #1 playing somebody as nicely roundedly ranked as 100 in the world, might be interesting to know that the chap ranked 100 made last year $186,000.
You felt Sampras was almost in the role of the coach then, just doing it so that Jonsson could just get to it. Come on, run for another one.
Yes, and you can see his anticipation here is good. The chap ranked 100 in the world, but just lacking a little flexibility here. Got there, but didn't really know what to do with the racket head.
I suppose $186,000. What's that? About 110, 115,000 pounds. Not bad work he's made in his career. Very nearly $700,000. It will be indeed $700,000 when he picks up his paycheck for this tournament.
Well, he tried to give the two-hander a real clip, but it's not easy, of course, running at full speed to be able to hit a double-hander quite as easily as it is to hit a one-handed shot. You don't have the other hand to act as a balance.
Didn't the ball drop a little too low?
Yes, it's a case of really not moving the feet. He quite often gets himself into rather awkward positions, particularly on that backhand side. And we've pointed it out many times before, but it's worth reminding ourselves that he, like Jonsson, had a double-handed backhand. And I think this is one of the reasons why his footwork, now that he plays a one-handed Sampras, is not perfect there.
Deal.
1 or 2 unaccustomed errors from Sampras in this game. Maybe mind is wandering just a little bit.
Well, Jonsson must really be wondering, because he hit the hardest forehand he's possibly ever hit. It was almost as if he was so frustrated. This is it. Look at that. I mean, he almost swept himself off his feet.
It's a bit like Mike Tyson landing one straight on your jaw and you hit him back harder.
Game, Sampras. Sampras is 5 games over.
He's a little groggy, forgot the score. Thought he had to change ends for a second there, Jonsson.
If you're just tuning in, let me tell you that this match being played indoors, not a very nice day. It's been a funny old week weather-wise in Melbourne. Beautiful yesterday, and pretty miserable today.
15.
So although they are playing outdoors now, they've kept the roof shut because there's a constant risk of showers, and obviously rather than be on and off, as it were,
30.
because it takes some 20 minutes to shut the roof, during which time obviously the court would get wet, and just keeping the roof closed all day. Silverstein inherited Stefan Edberg's disease of the foot faults. And for once, Sampras wrong-footed and a little leaden-footed. So second game in the set for Jonsson. But Pete Sampras is going to serve for a 2-sets-to-love lead when you rejoin us after this. The centre court at Flinders Park in Melbourne, enjoying a vintage performance from Pete Sampras, the defending champion. 52 minutes now as the clock ticks over gone, serving for 2-sets-to-love.
Second service. Love it.
He'll take 2 balls, but he'll only use the one. If he misses, it almost concentrates the mind, that, I would think.
15.
He's really the first man to get into the habit that many of the lady players have of turning to collect the second ball from the ball boy or ball girl if he misses the first serve. Most guys just stick the other one in the pocket. In the old days, although obviously you couldn't as a double-hander, but most guys used to have two balls in one hand, didn't they?
Yes, it's amazing really, because a lot of people, myself included, actually held two balls in the hand and then threw the one away, got the serve in. Remarkable that we didn't think of having pockets.
Two set points. Nice to hear Pete getting some enthusiastic support. Of course, his family is of Greek origin, and there's a big Greek immigrant population in Melbourne. Go down to Lygon Street, plenty of Greek restaurants, plenty of Italians for that matter as well.
Well, you've got to take those sort of risks. Yes, and it also strikes me that this, in a way, is the Sampras response to the Agassi spectacle of yesterday, when Agassi stole the crowd, really, and with not only his game, but also his antics, which so appealed. And Sampras doing, somehow, what he knows best, just playing beautifully sweet tennis.
I think in his heart of hearts, Sampras really wants Agassi to challenge him for the #1 spot, because he sees that as being the sort of rivalry the game really needs at the moment. He would compare that to Borg against McEnroe.
40.
With the contrast in styles, the contrast in personalities. He would not be surprised to know that Sampras does not cast himself in the McEnroe role. Well, that's a good start to the third set by the Swede. A love game. Just reminding Sampras that he's still got to win another set. It isn't quite all over yet. Prue, you were talking earlier about the fact that Pete had won the Italian Championships last year. He's made it quite clear that he would love now, above all else, although he wants to win the other three majors, to win the French Open. He's going to play a lot more on clay, European clay this year. He's going to places like Monte Carlo and so on, not playing the Asian hardcourt circuit as he has in the past. Do you think now Sampras is ready to win on clay against the likes of Bruguera?
I think he's almost there, and like him, I think it would be the culmination, really, of a desire to prove yourself on all surfaces. And he's a bit steeped in the history books, growing up idolizing Laver, who of course won the Grand Slam. And I think he feels, like many a player, that you're not a complete tennis player. I know McEnroe certainly felt that way. Lendl, because he didn't win Wimbledon. And Sampras determined to win on clay. I still think he's got quite a bit of improving to do on his backhand side. And perhaps until he does that, he may not quite do it. But I think he can come awfully close, and if the likes of Bruguera happen to lose to other players, might make the passage for him to the French Open title that little bit easier.
Any balls in play?
Still think Sampras is very vulnerable on the backhand.
Because of the movement or the technique of the stroke?
Both. I mean, you've got to look for slight flaws in a diamond if you want to criticize it, but that's where I believe it lies. And I remember one year when Courier beat him at the US Open. Courier did nothing but played at the backhand. It was almost as if he was focused only on, with one eye closed and one eye open, just staring away at Sampras's backhand side. He won easily, played him the next year, played an all-court game, varied his tactic, and lost.
Jonsson none too impressed by that decision.
Yes, I think if this weren't the centre court, Jonsson might have a bit more to say than just pursing his lips.
Game's up. One game.
I like one of the Australian wags in the crowd shouting, "Come on, Pitt, kill him off or finish it off," as if shouting for mercy.
Mentioning as we were Bruguera, I must confess I was a little disappointed that the Spaniard isn't here. He showed last year at Wimbledon in the US Open that he was beginning to develop a genuine all-court game, just for clay. But it's a fine rally, and nice to see Jonsson winning a battle of the forehands.
15.
Yes, this is a super point. I'm not trying to justify myself, but initially going for the backhand, and therefore Sampras imagining that he was going to go back there, so being able to wrong foot him more easily that way.
So good overhead, Sampras, but we haven't seen the slam dunk smash where he really leaps up high. Crowds love that. He learned it, as he says, by playing basketball as a kid. Really be interesting to know how high he can jump from a standing situation.
40.
And Jonsson profiting from some Sampras errors. And this is the most competitive set so far. Jonsson leads 2-1 on serve, third set.
Advantage, Sampras.
Yes, nice anticipation. The crowd appreciating the effort of Jonsson. Not willing to throw in the towel, even though he's taken a fair old hiding up to now.
Well, he went in on the backhand, but the approach shot was very short. And then the backhand volley, it's not a decisive volley. It isn't often for a double-hander playing a one-handed volley. And then, of course, making the mistake, as he tends to do, of playing most of those backhands to the Sampras forehand.
Well, he's getting a bit frustrated. It's 5 break points now Sampras has had in this particular game, which is by some distance the longest of the match. 7th deuce.
Advantage, Jonsson.
And there's the weakness.
Yes, I think for a great player, he looks just that little bit at sea there, doesn't he?
Well done, Jonsson. 5 break points he faced. He saved them all, and he stays ahead on serve in this third set. Mind you, Sampras leads 2 sets to love. It's Sampras having to work a little harder than he might have wished in this third set against Lars Jonsson, the man from Gothenburg. He was world number 7 junior in 1988. Pete didn't really have much of a junior career. He was quickly into the seniors. Broke into the world's top 100. And he was still 17. Only just 17. First semi-final on the tour was in Schenectady in August 1988. Whether it's just a little bit of perspiration from the players is collected on that baseline.
One of the most difficult things to do is to make the call as a linesperson and have to evade the ball at the same time.
Very necessary to evade it, because if it's coming to you at about 120 miles an hour, it doesn't half leave a bruise.
Seventh of the Swedes, Jonsson, ranked 100. Was the top headed by Edberg and Larsson. That is in the overall rankings. Well, I remember just as the first time I saw Agassi, I was so impressed by the fact that he took such an early ball and played so spontaneously. First time I saw Sampras, that was the shot I most remember, that forehand down the line.
And only his second ace of this third set, but that's enough for the scores to be level off at 3-all.
Yes, it loses a little bit of charm as an indoor event suddenly, this. The element's not in play at all. I think even spectatorially, just looking up and seeing a roof rather than a sky. Of course, it's a lot better seeing a roof than a wet sky.
Long, hard look from Sampras. Where's that mark?
Guilty, but not proven.
Oh. I think that was meant for that particular line judge. A little bit of an extra adrenaline in the forehand. Hit every bit as hard as anything Larsson's chucked at him. Jonsson's, we keep saying Larsson, don't we?
Yes, a little out of his depth as a serve volleyer, but not bad, of course, to do it occasionally, keep the other man honest.
Now then, 2 games ago, he survived 5 break points. Can he save this one? Should have done, but he chose the wrong option for once. And Sampras gets the breakthrough in the third set, and surely that is effectively that.
One of the hardest backhands I think I've seen Sampras hit. Of course, he had a target, and he had plenty of time in which to play the shot. Jonsson hitting it pretty short and just drilling it, really, not picking any spot particularly, giving himself a very enlarged target. It's difficult to know really what Jonsson has to do. Being the sort of mentality he is, I'm sure he's just going to try and whip the ball harder and harder. The other option, of course, as I've said, is just to attack, and nothing but the backhand side. But those aren't his thought processes. Otherwise, he would have tried from the start to have done that. But when it comes to power, there's really only one man in it. Control power, I suppose, is what it is.
To a certain extent, it's an academic argument, but where do you put Sampras in your list of all-time greats?
Well, I think he's still got somewhere to go before he goes up there with the tops. But if he did the French, he'd begin to creep in amongst the very best.
Yeah, I must say I go along with that. I think at the moment, of the recent generation, he's up there with the Beckers and the Edbergs and the Lendls and the McEnroes and the Connors. But if he could do what they were unable to do, or indeed Borg, that is to win all 4 slams, that elevates him a further notch up the ladder.
Interesting that, because I wonder what would have happened if Jonsson stayed in the middle of the court. We saw Agassi last night really hitting at his opponent when he had the whole court open. But I just get the feeling that Sampras is a little more compassionate than Agassi, and he would not have done so quite with the venom.
That's a lovely volley, making space for himself, the ball coming straight at him. So Sampras within a game, very close in the last 16. Jonsson to serve to save the match.
Somebody seems to be playing the last post.
I suspect it will be for Jonsson. But maybe Not just yet.
Looking at Sampras' right arm and his left. His right arm now decidedly thicker and more muscular than his left. Might not have been so had he continued to play the two-handed game.
Match point.
It's an old tactic.
Oh, when you match point down and second serve. One or two people have accused Becker of doing that sort of thing when he's match point up and it's second serve. Anyway, well done, Jonsson.
Yeah, it's just wide.
Pedro Bravo confirming the call.
Just fell away a bit. Left arm collapsed a little soon.
Well, the Swedes resisted well in this third set. A whole stack of break points he's staved off, and the crowd have appreciated his effort.
Shoelacer did it.
I shall do that in my next Club Hackers Sunday afternoon match. Get to match point down and retie the shoelaces. Probably promptly save a double fault.
Yes, one thing, thinking about shoes and movement on this court, of course, in the past players have complained about attackiness here. That certainly doesn't apply in these sort of situations where the roof is closed and conditions are air conditioned as opposed to being very hot. And that at least will be some relief for these chaps, because it can get awfully hot out there.
Yeah, there are huge blowers for the air conditioning here, because obviously the 15,000 people jammed inside a comparatively small stadium if you compare it to obviously a football stadium and one of the giant Astrodomes in which they play American football in the United States. But it's a very efficient air conditioning system.
One wonders actually how many matches they've played indoors. I was lucky enough last year to get involved in a charity thing the day before, and we had the roof over because it was a wet day then. But actually very few matches have been played since they've had the roof.
So Sampras, of course, serving for the match. After, what, an hour and 36 minutes.
Yes, giving the court a bit of a kick there. If he'd moved his feet a bit more. Where people like Agassi and Kapelnikov are so good with their double-handed backhands.
They'd have been pleased with that one.
Yes, and there exactly the contrast, because he had the right foot nicely planted. So he was very stable when he made the swing. Didn't have to lean forward as much as he did with the previous one, where he was really stretched because he hasn't got his legs close enough to the ball.
The ace takes the defending champion and #1 seed to his second match point.
Thank you. Pleasure with you.
That's it. Sampras, another straight sets victory, and through, he's looking pretty good.
Yes, he is. It's interesting, isn't it, that as the weather has got a bit cooler, so the players are beginning to look even hotter. Agassi certainly did yesterday. Sampras, not quite a perfect match, missed a few 2 forehands for his liking in the third set, but otherwise looking creamy.
Sampras through. Next on Eurosport, it'll be Jim Courier. That's after the break.